Hello, everybody, and welcome to our show today. Today, we're going to be diving in. We're going to be talking about business loans. We're going to be talking about exactly how you can get a business loan, even if you don't think you're in a position now to be able to get a business loan. We're also going to be talking about lender hacks, kind of their underwriting guidelines that determine if you can and can't actually get approved. So a lot of people don't realize that lenders have their own criteria of exactly what it takes for you to get approved for a business loan, even business credit. And if you meet that criteria, well, you often get approved automatically from their computer systems. If you don't meet that criteria, then you often do not get approved. So today we're going to decode this whole thing. I'm going to outline a lot of different funding options you have to get a business loan, no matter what your situation is. We're also going to be talking about the exact requirements that lenders have, mapping that out so you can make sure you meet those requirements before you even apply. So before we get in too deep, let me introduce myself real quick. My name is Ty Crandall. I am the CEO of CreditSuite. And what we do at CreditSuite is we help entrepreneurs obtain business loans. We help entrepreneurs build credit for their EIN that's not linked to their social security number. So my mission in life is to make sure that anybody that wants to start a business or who owns a business has the ability to get access to capital, to money to grow that business. So if you are at any place in a startup phase or a very, very successful business already, and your goal is to obtain money, to get credit, to get the best terms, well, you've come to the right place. So there's a couple things that a resources. If you want to learn more, you can definitely check us out on our main website. That's CreditSuite.com, CreditSuite, SUITE.com. And we also have a link especially for this event, CreditSuite.com/get funding. And there's no dash between get funding. It's just GETFUNDING. So if you actually want to see what kind of financing you can get, we created this really cool pre-qualifier where you can go through and it will ask you a bunch of different questions and tell you exactly all the financing out there that's available for you. So if you're actually here with us on the live webinar today, then you'll actually be able to go through and see this link on the bottom of a lot of our slides. Just so you know, that's what that's there for, in case you actually want to go through and see live during the event what you can actually qualify for. CreditSuite.com /get funding. And again, don't forget, as we're going to dive into here, even if you can't get a business loan, we're going to still talk about how you can get credit. So everybody here will hopefully have a multitude of different options that you can actually classify or qualify for. So business loans, let's talk a little bit about what you should know. Well, a lot of people, when I stand in front of a large group and speak, I always ask this question: where would you go if you need money? And everybody almost unanimously says their bank. But the reality is that conventional banks, when I say conventional banks, I mean Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Regions Bank, your big banks. These are just not the source of money anymore. So, per the Department of Revenue, I think it was last year that I read this, over 98% of financing is now coming from alternative lenders, not big banks. So what's happened is Dodd-Frank and a bunch of other requirements, when the mortgage crash happened, put a lot of restrictions on what banks can and can't do. So the result was more regulation, more restriction on the banking industry. And the statistics on this, and I was just actually somewhere where I was listening to the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, talk about this statistic along with some other groups. And what they were actually talking about, and I'm not sure if it came from the CBFPB with that quote or not, but what they were talking about was that revolving account utilization or revolving accounts, the limits that are being issued are about 15% lower than they used to be before Dodd-Frank. So the bottom line is restriction has come into the banking industry. It's limited what banks can actually lend. And so now what's happened is all these alternative lenders have popped up and go, hey, Mr. Bank, if you don't want this customer, we'll take this customer. And it's kind of been this rise of this alternative lending revolution where you now find all these lenders that will lend you money based on one individual's strength in your business versus the big banks that make you almost require that you be nearly perfect to actually get approved for financing. So unlike with conventional banks, what alternative lenders are doing is they're looking at one aspect of your business, not the entire business. So they're just much easier to qualify. Anybody that's been through an SBA loan application knows it's not an easy thing. They ask for your financials, your projected financials, and your tax returns, personal and business, and bank statements, and all of these different things, resumes and business plans. Well, alternative lenders don't ask for hardly any of those things. They're only asking usually for one thing versus this multitude of different things that conventional banks ask for. And what you need to know is conventional banks are asking for all these things because they're trying to find a fault in your business. They're trying to find your weakness. They expose that weakness, and then that's usually the reason that you get denied. So even when you supply all this documentation, the statistics show that nearly 90% of those applications are still denied because they're going through these documents and finding something that they don't like, which is the reason for the denial. So again, you can often get approved with an alternative lending source when you just can't get approved with the bank because they're not looking for all these different things. They're not tearing apart your business to try to find your business weakness. And even when you think there's no way you're going to get approved, I mean, even when you think, okay, look, I have really bad credit. I mean, and I'm like, okay, well, you could still get approved. And you're like, no, Ty, you don't understand. It's really bad. Or even if you don't have collateral, or even if you don't have the cash flow on your, or show a profit on your tax returns, and you think there's no way you're going to get money, there's still plenty of ways. You just have to know where to look. And that's really how our company got started. And I'm not going to, self-promote here, but this was what we realized was a big problem, that alternative lenders, there's a lot of them in a lot of different products. But if you don't know exactly what to look for, then the problem there is you're never going to know to get approved. You're never going to know where to even apply, where you can even possibly get approved. And that's the problem. That's exactly why, I'm here today to kind of give you a background of where you should actually look, where you should be applying based on your business strength. So alternative lending options now mean you can get approved for a business loan even if you have really bad personal credit. You see a lot of this promoted. I see a lot of this on my Facebook newsfeed where I see all kinds of offers saying, hey, look, if you have X in revenue and Y in time in business, you can get approved regardless of personal credit. You can also get approved if you have no business credit. Now, a lot of you aren't familiar with what business credit is, and that's okay. I wasn't either, which is why one of the reasons I'm here today and started CreditSuite to make sure everybody knows what business credit is and how it works. But what I will tell you is this: big banks require that you have good business credit to get approved. And if you haven't focused on building this, you're not going to have it. As a matter of fact, SBA loans require a FICO SBSS score to be pulled. And if you don't have good business credit, well, then even no matter how good your personal credit is, you'd still get denied for the loan because you have to have some form of established business credit to get approved. It's just a requirement at the big banks, but alternative lenders don't have that requirement. You don't have any types of collateral. Well, this is required at the big banks. You often have to have 20 to 50% in collateral what you're borrowing, to even 100% in some cases. But alternative lenders, this isn't a requirement. If you're just starting a business, banks don't like startups for a reason, because the majority of startups fail. And if you look at the curve of successful businesses, what you find is the longer a business is open in operation, the less risk they are. So big banks require 3 years of tax returns because they don't even want to lend to you if you haven't been in business for 3 years. Well, as alternative lenders, there's a lot of options out there, even if you were just starting your business, to still be able to get business financing. And we're going to be decoding some of those today. Even if you don't have tax returns or your returns aren't very good, you can still come in and get business loans through all these alternative lenders. As a matter of fact, most of the options we're going to talk about today don't even request your tax returns. You don't even have to provide your tax returns to get approved. And there's some that do, and we'll talk about those as well. Even if you have limited or no cash flow. And that's the problem with number one. The people that will give you money if you have bad credit usually want you to have consistent cash flow. And a lot of people don't have both. And we'll talk about some options that'll work for you even if you don't have both of those. So the key to getting approved is to know what lenders are looking for to issue you an actual approval. And one of our COO, Megan, actually was a huge banker with Wells Fargo. And what's interesting about that is that one of the reasons, the biggest frustration she had, was people would get denied for business loans because of really basic, kind of dumb reasons. And the bankers weren't even allowed to tell the applicants what the reason was. I mean, how dumb? I mean, imagine if you supplied all this documentation that they asked for to get a bank loan and you got denied because they searched your company and they couldn't find your company because you didn't put, CreditSuite Inc. with the ink on your application. And when they went and looked, they found the ink out there, but they didn't find your business without the ink. I mean, basically your business was listed incorrectly and you got denied. They never got it any further than that. It would be such a simple fix, but bankers aren't even allowed to tell you that. In a lot of cases, they'll lose their job if they tell you that. So what we're going to do today is we're going to dive in and talk about the secret formula that lenders have, so you know exactly what the requirements are, so you can meet them before you actually apply. Okay, and that's really what this is about. Is, look, I've spent my life in finance. My dad was vice president of a bank. I grew up, I remember as a little kid, like crawling around at the bank and like not being conscious to not hit the button that sent the police out there. I just grew up in financial services. I love finance. And, one of the things that really baffles me is that, a lot of people go out there and apply for credit financing with no clue on if they get approved. You really shouldn't have to do that. I can tell you from owning a mortgage business and spending a lot of time in the business financial space that lenders and credit issuers have a very set criteria of guidelines that you must meet. If you meet it, then often you'll get approved automatically without a person ever looking at your application. But if you don't meet those requirements, it usually gets pushed to a manual review and you often get denied. Many of you are familiar with this. You apply online for a credit card, that little wheel starts spinning. You're like, come on, baby, come on, come on. And then it says, oh, you'll hear from us in 7 to 10 days, which is never a good sign. Or you get an instant approval. That's because their computer either instantly approves it or it denies it. It goes for a manual underwrite, and then you hear from the manual underwriter. My goal for you is for us to be able to teach you exactly what these lenders are looking at, so you'll know you can meet that criteria before you apply, with the goal of getting an actual automated approval. And you need to know what types of financing is available so you'll know what to apply for. Again, back to that point I mentioned, there's a lot of different kinds of alternative financing. If you go to one lender that offers cash advances, even if your credit's 850, they still can't get you financing unless you meet their revenue and time and business requirements. So we've got to teach you what these lenders are looking for individually, so you'll know the best type of lender to actually get approved. So no matter what your situation is, you will leave this webinar with options to be able to get financing for your business. Okay, and that's kind of the beauty of what our belief is we believe you should have options no matter what your situation is to be able to get financing. And the better your situation, the more options you actually have available. And as I mentioned, we've got this link, creditsuite.com/get funding, where you can easily go to see exactly what kind of financing you can get approved for. So all credit issuers and lenders have these requirements you've got to meet to get approved. Let me see, I think, and if you meet these requirements, you can often get approved automatically, which is what we talked about. Even with a manual review, by knowing what these secret requirements are, you can meet or exceed them before you apply, nearly guaranteeing your approval. And that's really what this comes down to, is let's know what they're looking for to hopefully get the automatic approval. And if nothing else, we get the manual approval if it gets escalated to that point. So you should set up a business name, firstly, that's neutral and not in a high-risk industry. Look, we, as a company, and anybody, and in the past, I had a business called Elite Credit. That company got denied all kinds of stuff. Financing, we had our bank account shut down, our merchant account would be shut down just because we had the word credit in it. So why I chose to do it this time around, I have no idea. But I can tell you that my second business behind that was Elite Business, because it was general. It didn't have credit. It didn't have financial. It didn't have anything that could put me into a restricted industry in the actual name. So you want to try to choose an actual neutral name. When I'm going out and saying what industry I am, I always refer to it as consulting, because consulting is a general industry. When I start saying financial services, or if you're a real estate agent or mortgage broker or accountant, or depending on the type of things you sell online, or credit repair, these are all deemed high-risk industries. And just the insinuation that you have something in your name that reflects you're in that industry alone can often get you denied. So if you do have a name that indicates you're in a high-risk industry, you can easily be declined. If you aren't declined, you could still be subject to more stringent underwriting guidelines. It can still be harder for you to get approved, even if you don't get an immediate decline. Okay, these industries will often get you immediately declined. Okay, and I'm just going to pull them all up, and I'm not going to go through them all, but I'll give you some of them. These are pretty much result in an automatic approval. These are on a high-risk, restricted industry list where you're not going to get approved if they know you're in one of these industries. And that's bail bonds and ammunition and check cashing agencies and energy and oil and any kind of finance. So I talk to people in credit repair and real estate agents that are offended that they're considered to be high risk. Well, it's not your industry. It's the whole grouping of financial services, whether you're security brokers or commodity brokers or real estate agents, mortgage brokers. A lot of these are deemed to be in finance. Gaming or gambling, pawn shops, political campaigns, public administrations, like if you're the county, city, state, which probably nobody here is, even X-rated products and entertainment, these will automatically get you declined if your name insinuates that you're in one of these industries. Now, these industries will have more stringent underwriting guidelines, but won't get you immediately declined. Whether you're in agriculture, auto sales of some sort, courier services, dry cleaning, entertainment, such as adult entertainment, general contractors, gasoline stations, healthcare, special trade contractors, hotels or motels, jewelry, precious stones and metals, limousine services, long distance trucking, mobile or manufactured home sales, phone sales and direct selling establishments, real estate agents and brokers, real estate developers, land dividers or land subdividers, restaurants, software programming companies, taxi cabs. So I actually wanted to make sure I read this list because this is probably, there's a lot of you on here that probably have suffered from this. You know, you've probably been denied financing and not known why. And now you may know why, just because they see your industry as high risk. Now, you might be saying, well, what are you talking about? I mean, how's a hotel or a dry cleaner or a taxi cab a high-risk industry? Well, it has to do with a lot of factors. And one of the biggest factors has to do with default. You know, if they have an industry that just has higher rates of defaults or failure, then that puts you in the high-risk category. So, for example, restaurants are one of these great examples. The majority of restaurants fail. And often statistics show at 2 to 3 times the rate of a normal business, a restaurant fails. Don't know why. Just seems like everybody thinks they can own a restaurant, and a lot of them aren't able to successfully do so. So because so many fail and so many default on financing, it automatically creates this high risk category that restaurants go into. So there's a lot of things that could put you into high risk, whether you're in an industry that's just not looked at favorably, like X-rated. I'm not saying there's anything bad if that's in your industry, but I'm just saying that lenders don't look favorably at those types of industries, or industries that just have proven to be higher risk because of defaulting. Even individual lenders create their own subcategories. If all of a sudden they're dealing with student loan companies that tend to be higher risk, well, then they restrict them. But this is a good overall view of what's kind of considered to be restricted industries, or these are the type of industries that can easily require more stringent guidelines for you to actually get approved. Okay, so you can get a business loan with any entity. Just so you know, I get this question a lot, whether it's a corporation, LLC, whether it's a sole proprietorship or a partnership, you can get it with any entity. But choosing an LLC or corporation means that you and your business are truly separate. And that's what we want to talk about, is how to separate your liability, because yes, with business loans, it's hard to do so. Most business loans want you to be a personal guarantor. But in a lot of cases, you can get credit, you can get access to money without being a guarantor. But if you choose an entity like a sole proprietorship or a partnership, you are the business. So you'll always be liable for the business. So if you're in one of those entities, you might want to consider choosing an LLC or corporation. It separates you from the business. It does, in some cases, become easier for you to get financing. But most importantly, it separates your liability, so you're not liable for what happens in your business, even though given some lenders and most lenders with most loan programs are still going to want you to be a personal guarantor. There's other things like your business getting sued for any number of things, whether they be your fault or not, that you're still personally liable for if you are the business. So LLC or corporations make a lot of sense. And make sure you set up a bank account as well. Nowadays, we live in a world where the day you set up your bank account is going to determine how old your business is, because people are selling these short shelf corporations. And because shelf corporations are being sold, lenders now often look at your bank account start date for when your business actually started. So that's something you want to do early on in the process. And set up items such as your bank account, EIN, DUNS number will often require your social security number or physical address. And I'm sorry if you're watching this, that graphic overlays some of that text. So basically, you know, a lot of people say, Ty, look, you talk about business credit and getting business credit without a social. So I can't get my DUNS number. I can't get my EIN number without my social or a physical address. You're right. In some of those cases, like a DUNS won't accept that you have a virtual address. You'll have to have your social security number to get your DUNS number. What matters is that you don't put your social on applications for credit, business credit, not loans. Loans are going to want your social, your DUNS, your actual EIN. These might require your physical address or DUNS number or physical address or social. So if you hear me talk about not providing your social, that's usually on applications for credit, not these other things I mentioned. I just want to make sure you know that because a lot of people ask that question as well. So your business should have a physical address. Okay, this address should not be a home address. If you're using a home address, it will get you denied. Preferably, it's not a PO box or a UPS address either. It needs to be a real physical address, a real physical location. If you don't have one, option number one is a virtual address. You know, companies like Regus offer good virtual addresses. They're a little bit more expensive. You might be able to find cheaper sources out there, but they've always delivered a really good product from what we've seen. And if you absolutely cannot get a virtual address, then you want to consider a UPS address, not a PO box. So you can go to the UPS store, use their address, box number 147 or 156 or 182, whatever it may be. You can use an actual box number, not put box, but you might put, you know, address 111 Up Street, a number 142. So that's your last resort. I mean, no home address, absolutely not. You want to use a physical business address, preferably virtual address if you can't. Absolute last resort, do not use a PO box, use a UPS address. That even in itself might get you denied, but you have a better chance of using that type of address than you would an actual home address. You got to have a business phone number. This cannot be a home or cell phone. A lot of people say, look, can it be a voice over IP? Can it be a Google? Yes, it can be any of those things. What you can't use is a mobile phone or a home phone. And the next question a lot of people say is, well, what if I work from home? Great. Then go to a place like Ring Central, and for 10 or 15 bucks a month, you can get a business phone. There's even places you can get free phone numbers out there or pay very little for them, whether it be Google or some of these other sources. You just never want to use a mobile or home phone because those are categorized in a way where lenders do an immediate check. And if you're using a mobile phone or home phone, it easily will get you immediately denied because you shouldn't be running a business with a mobile phone or home phone. It just shows that you're unestablished. You get red flagged, it creates all kinds of problems. So something you have to absolutely avoid. You should also have a local phone number. In a lot of cases, you're going to be asked for it. You know, if you go to apply for a DUNS number, they're going to ask you for your local number and your toll-free number. They want to see both. It's often recommended with 411 that you actually use a local number as well. So there are places where you need to have both a local and toll-free. Now, you don't need to have a toll-free number if you're a pizza shop and all you do is local business, but most businesses that are doing any kind of business outside of their local area is going to need a toll-free number. Look, even if you're selling glass or, you know, gifts of some sort, you're still more than likely going to have an online presence as well. So, you know, nowadays, most people need toll-free numbers, and you can go to a place like Ring Central and get a toll-free, get a fax, get a local pretty much in one package for very cheap. So there's really no reason that you wouldn't want to consider doing so. This is extremely important. You've also got to make sure that your phone number is listed with 411. It's extremely important because this is one of the basic checks that lenders actually go through is they're going to do a check to make sure that your phone number is actually listed with 411. It's how they know your business is legitimate. Now, there's a company out there called List Yourself, and List Yourself does a pretty good job of actually, you know, helping you get your number listed with 411, although you have to pay to do so. So if you're not normally established out there, then, you know, you could use a service like List Yourself to actually get set up with 411. But it's important. If you ever want to build business credit, this is required for a lot of the initial vendor credit that you're actually going to obtain. And it's absolutely looked at by lenders as well. And you also should have a fax number. Again, nowadays, you can use services like Ring Central where phone, fax, local, toll-free, it all comes together in one. Okay, so you need a professional website and email address. You can't get your domain and email from a place like GoDaddy. for really less than 12 bucks. It's not expensive to get these kind of things nowadays. And excuse me, I kind of was switching something over here, so it kind of messed up my screen a little. So it's not difficult to actually get these type of things, to get a domain, to get, hosting for your actual website. It's actually very cheap. You can go to a place like GoDaddy and get something like that for about 12 bucks. So if you're doing that, then, that's something you can absolutely do. And I'm kind of not monitoring the questions a lot coming in because I have so many things going on. But somebody did ask if you could use a Magic Jack number. And yeah, you can. You just need to make sure that it's not a home phone or mobile phone. Somebody asked about an insurance agency. Yeah, Steve, actually insurance is a higher risk industry, but I'll show you a product that you can get especially for the insurance agency or for the insurance industry that a lot of agents don't know exist. That's pretty powerful. So that'll be something that we'll actually be diving into as well. So hosting your website's also super affordable. Again, you can get most of this stuff for about 12 bucks. And you can also get website templates from a place like templatemonster.com. And hire someone at a place like Upwork.com to put it up. Nowadays you can get a professional website put up for 200, 250 bucks. You go to a place like Template Monster, you pick a professional looking template. You go to a place like Fiverr or Upwork, and that's Fiverr, Fiverr.com, or Upwork, Upwork.com. You hire a freelancer to put up your site, and you can get it done for very little money. So you've got to make sure that you have a website, that you have an actual email address. If you're filling out applications without these things, it's just very, very, very tough to actually get approved. Okay, make sure you have your proper licensing for your county, state, and your industry, and make sure you're listed correctly online. Okay, so I use a service called Yext. I got signed up for it, YEXT. Yext actually makes sure I'm listed properly with Yext, and they get me listed everywhere else, which is pretty cool. So they actually make sure that my listings are correct everywhere else by paying for their service. You can go to a lot of places individually, whether it be Yahoo, Google, Bing. These places all have free, free, almost like a Yelp type service that you can get online, but you need to make sure that all of your listings are correct, that your address, that your phone number. So we just went through that as a company. We just moved into a new physical location, and by using a service like Yext, we were able to change almost all of our addresses online in one place. If you don't do that, it's no big deal. You can go to the main ones, Yahoo, Bing, Google. Just make sure that anywhere you can find your business, that the information is listed correctly, and also make sure that it's listed correctly on all your documents, your utility statements, any bills you have, anything like that, your bank statement, that should all have the same physical address. Because again, if lenders go looking and they realize that you've got one address here, they don't know if it's the same business. So what happens is they'll often deny you financing because they're not sure if what they're finding online is the same as the company that's applying on the application. This is why it's extremely important. And when they ask for your documents and your tax returns and your bank statements and all these things show different addresses, they'll immediately deny you in a lot of cases. It's one of the biggest reasons that companies get denied at banks is because banks can't find you at 100% and know that what they're looking at online is the same business because the name is different than what you're applying with. The address is different. This stuff sounds so basic, but these are the biggest reasons that people get denied business loans because they don't think about it. They change their business name. They put, ABC Inc. out there on the application. Then there you go by ABC Online. And the banks can't recognize that you are one and the same. They've got different addresses. So they will always go on the side of default and deny you if these type of things actually happen. So once you made sure that the information you'll put on your application is credible, then now it's time to find the right financing for your business. So if you've gone through these steps, now you've made sure that your business is credible. And what I like to say is every line item on an application, as you answer that question, make sure that what you're putting on that application reflects that you're credible. If you're putting something on there that reflects that you're not credible, then that's a pretty good indicator you need to address that before you actually submit the application. If you've gone through these steps and you are set up credibly, well, then now it's time to actually go out and start finding the actual right financing for your business. Okay, so that being said, the question becomes, you got to have a lendable strength. What is your actual lendable strength? Okay, based on your lendable strength is going to determine where you go to get approved. Now, a lendable strength is usually one of the 3 C's of lending that you'll see on the upcoming slides that we'll talk about. Okay, the more lendable strengths you have, the more of these 3 C's that you have, the more funding options you'll have. It's as simple as that. If you have none, business credit will help you get money. If you have 1, you get financing. If you have 2 or 3 of these strengths, then you get more and more financing. The more of these strengths you have, the more money you're actually going to get. So here's those 3 strengths, or here's one of the 3 strengths. The first is cash flow. Do you have consistent cash flow? Meaning, are you a real estate agent who has, 1 deposit in a month or a bunch of deposits in a month like a retail store has? Is it consistent? Is the money predictable that's actually coming into your business? Okay, is it over $10,000 a month, or is it less than this? Can it be verified by either bank statements or tax returns, your actual revenue? Have you been in business 1 year or longer? If you answer yes to these, you say, yeah, I'm pretty close to 10 grand. I've been in business a year. I can verify my money through my bank account, and I'm consistent in my revenue. Well, then that's going to open up for you cash flow financing. Okay, now if you have consistent deposits in your bank account, you may qualify for this kind of revenue financing. And with revenue financing, you're getting $5,000 to $50,000 in funding within usually less than two days. We've seen people get financing in 24 hours. And if you get approved and you come back to get more money when half of that's paid, you can often get money back in your bank account within 24 hours. So it's very, very, very fast financing. And all that's really required is just a quick review of your actual bank statements. If you've got bank statements, well, then you can easily come in and you can easily get approved for cash flow based financing, even if you have credit issues. Okay, it's one of the easiest type of financing that you'll find. So you really, to get approved, they want you to have 1 year in business. You need to have $10,000 a month in revenue. You can also get approved if you don't have one of these, but you have some compensating factors. So let's say, okay, you have 8,000 in revenue versus 10. Or let's say you've been in business 5 or 8 months or 6 months instead of a year. But let's say you have really, really good credit. That's a compensating factor that can often get you approved if you don't have that. Let's say you've been in business 7 years, but you only have 8,000 a month in revenue. Well, then you have a good chance of getting approved because that's a compensating factor that you've been in business longer. So there are compensating factors if you don't have 1 year in business and 10 grand a month of revenue. But again, this kind of financing is typically for people on average that have 1 year in business and 10,000 a month in revenue. Okay, so this is really cash-based financing. Can you verify your revenue through bank statements? Is it consistent? Is it about 10 grand a month? Have you been in business about a year or more? If so, then cash flow financing is a great option. And again, even if you say, well, that doesn't work for me, don't worry. We got a long way to go. We're going to cover a lot of different financing to make sure that we do find at least 1 or 2 options that do work for you. So is your strength personal credit? Do you have credit scores of 700 or higher? Do you have anyone who can sign for you as a personal guarantor? Knowing the credit you can get will not report on the personal credit report. So, we talk to people that say, hey, look, I don't have good credit. Okay. Well, do you possibly have somebody around you that does have good credit? Maybe it's a family member. Maybe it's a friend. Maybe it's somebody that wants to invest into your business, and get a return and a piece of equity. There's a lot of different options. And when we pose that question, we find about, 15 to 25% of those same people go, yeah, I got so-and-so. They would easily sign for me as a guarantor, especially when we tell them that they can get unsecured financing that will not report on that person's personal credit report. You can actually get $150,000 as a startup business, even if you're not using your credit to qualify, even if you're using a guarantor's credit to qualify, and that none of that credit would even report on their personal credit reports. It would only report on your business credit reports, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So do you have average credit, but you have cash flow verifiable per your tax returns? So let's say you've got 650 credit scores, but you've got good cash flow. Your tax returns reflect you do. They even reflect you have a little bit of profit. Well, that opens up some unsecured financing options for you as well. So unsecured financing provides some of the highest loan amounts you're ever going to see, especially for startup businesses. You can get 0% credit lines and cards with stated income, no financials required. This is the closest to a no-doc program you'll ever see. You don't need bank statements. You don't need tax returns. All you need is good credit or a good credit personal guarantor. And these accounts report to the business credit reporting agencies. So you're getting access to money and building your business credit at the exact same time. And then that gets you even more money without a personal guarantee. Now, most of this type of unsecured financing, it's credit-based, does have a personal guarantee, but as you start to build your business credit with it, that's what helps you get access to the money without the actual personal guarantee. Okay, you can usually get lent about 5 times the amount of your highest revolving credit limit account now. So let's say you have a $10,000 limit credit card now, or let's say the guarantor, maybe it's, you know, a relative or family member, or excuse me, a family member or friend or somebody that wants to invest your business. Let's say they have a $20,000 credit card limit. Well, you can get 5 times that amount. So if your credit card limit was $5,000, that could mean you could get about $25,000 in financing. If that guarantor's limit was $50,000, that means that you can easily get, you know, about $150,000, which is the max in financing. So usually whatever the highest revolving limit account is of you or the guarantor, you can usually get about 5 times that amount. Now, this is the highest amount of financing you're ever going to see for a startup. So if you are starting a business and you want the absolute most amount of money you can get, this is it. And so you really want to do a deep dive and start opening your Facebook and looking at all your friends and going through your phone and thinking back to everybody you have in your life that you may want to ask to be a guarantor. And again, don't look at this like they're doing you even a favor. You might go to someone and go, look, I got this great business idea and I tested it and it's making some money and I'd like to scale this thing and make a lot more money with it. But the deal is I need 30 grand. And I don't have what I need to get it. And, you know, by the way, it sounds like you have good credit. Would you be interested in maybe owning a piece of this business for an injection of cash for 30 grand if I could help you get the 30 and none of it would report on your personal credit? You just be liable in case I defaulted. And of course, you can be part owner to make sure that doesn't happen. Something like that could easily happen where it's not even that you're asking somebody for a favor, but you're actually giving them equity or ownership, or maybe they're very passionate about what you're doing or you and want to invest or you in the business. Either way, highest amount of money you're going to get as a startup, usually 5 times the amount that you'd ever get at your bank. Because if you walk into your bank as a startup or without being really well established, they're mostly going to give you a credit card. Well, you could get 5 times that amount with this kind of program if you or someone you know has the actual good personal credit. And there's no impact on your personal credit when you use this type of financing because there's no reporting of these accounts on your credit report. So you could max out the credit cards and it wouldn't even lower your consumer credit score like most business credit cards will. You'll need to have a 700 score or higher or a guarantor with this kind of credit to actually get approved. Now, if you have average credit or better and you do have tax returns, then you can easily get some type of alternative SBA loan. Now, this type of financing has longer terms and lower rates. You can get 6, 7, 8% rate. You can get 2, 3, 4, 5-year terms on this kind of financing in some cases. And this helps keep payments low because the rates are low, the terms are long. Now, your tax returns have to show a profit for most types of alternative SBA loans. And so we've talked about several things. We talked about if you have consistent cash flow, you get cash flow financing. If you have good credit or good credit guarantor, you can get credit-based financing. Now we're talking about, okay, this is what most people want. I want the lowest rate, the longest term. Well, the best financing you're going to get through SBA if you have perfect business credit and personal credit and collateral and all those things that we talked about. But maybe you don't. Maybe all you have is average credit or better, and you've got tax returns to show some kind of profit. Well, that'll also open up alternative SBA loans that get you into this longer term, lower rate financing to keep payments affordable. Now, another strength is maybe you have collateral, and this is our third C. Cash flow is the first. Credit is the second. The third is actual collateral. So these are the 3 C's. If you have one of these, it opens up some kind of financing. If you don't, then we're still going to talk about options that will work for you as well. So do you have some type of viable personal or business collateral that could work that you could actually pledge to actually get approved for financing? And I know a lot of people are in the comments. A lot of people have questions, and I will actually get to your questions as soon as we're done. I want to make sure those are answered just so you know. Do you have some type of viable personal or business collateral? Do you know someone who does? And again, maybe you don't, but maybe somebody wants to be part of your business, believes in you, believes in the concept, and maybe they do. Well, that opens up financing options. Maybe it's 401k or IRA or stocks or bonds, which often people have. Maybe it's equipment or inventory, purchase orders, account receivables, book of business for insurance agencies. Okay. And so, Steve, I just mentioned this because I saw you had this question. Book of business financing is a great option for insurance agents, where insurance agents can pledge their actual book of business as collateral to get financing. You could even buy an insurance agency using the book of business that they have as collateral as well. So do you or someone you know have some type of actual collateral? Well, that opens up the door to actually get financing. And I know somebody's asking, I know, Steve, if you're sticking with me here, then I'll give you some information here at the end where you can get in touch with me directly. Okay, so you can use your existing stocks as leverage to get business financing. You can borrow as much as 90% of the value of your stocks or somebody else's, and you'll continue to earn interest on that even as you're pledging it as collateral. And it's pretty good financing, and it's really low rate. And you can get this with bad credit. You can get this with no cash flow verification. So it's a great option if you or someone you know has this kind of actual financing. And Daryl, a car can't be used as collateral because vehicles are depreciating assets. So if you have a big rig truck or a car, those can't be collateral for a business loan. But there are personal loans, even signature loans from banks and other kind of local lending companies where you actually can get that kind of financing. We actually can pledge vehicles as collateral, but you're not going to find business financing where that will work. You can also use a 401k or IRA to actually get collateral as well. Okay, this program uses IRS proven strategies where you're not going to have any kind of tax penalties, and you can still earn interest on your 401k and pay low rates of 5% or lower. And again, it doesn't matter what your credit is. It doesn't matter what your cash flow is. You can still get really, really, really low rates. Okay. You can usually get up to 100% of what's in the 401k or whatever's rollable from your employer beyond the 90% that's actually available in stocks. You can also use outstanding receivables. Maybe you're starting your business or in the first year plus, and you have receivables from somebody that owes you money. You can use this as financing. You can get as much as 80% of your receivables advanced in 24 hours. And the remainder you get minus their fee when that actual creditor pays. So this is very popular with doctors, very popular with people in the construction industry. Credit does not matter at all. Cash flow does not matter at all. They just want to see you have the receivables. So I actually saw a message come in on my Facebook Messenger from one of my friends that is a doctor, and he's actually in the process of working with us right now to get this kind of financing. The biggest headache he says they have is getting money from the insurance agencies that pay them as being doctors. But he doesn't have to worry about that because with AR financing, they collect the money for you and you get the money right away without having to wait weeks or months to get paid. It's very fast to close and rates are very low. About 1.3% is often what you'll actually find. Okay, now account receivable financing, your receivables should be with the government or another business. They can't be with an actual individual. Okay, and if you have purchase orders as well, you can get financing using those as collateral to actually get those purchase order filled. So both of these are great options to get you money instead of you using your actual cash flow. A lot of people are trying to use their cash flow to fund their business, but if you have purchase orders or account receivables, you don't necessarily need to do this. Okay, and somebody's asking here, if I have a primary loan, can I get another loan? Yeah, it is. It's definitely possible. And what we'll do is in the Q&A, when I'm done, I'll dive in and get a little bit more insight about the kind of loan you have, because that's going to determine the actual options. But nowadays, like if you have a merchant cash advance, there's lenders out there in the alternative lending space that will give you low price money and pay off that actual cash advance for you, which is very popular. So maybe you have inventory on your shelves, or maybe you're building a business where you're going to have inventory and you want to use that as collateral. Or if you have a high amount of inventory, like 500,000, you can get approved for a line of credit for 50% of the value of your actual inventory. And rates are really low as well, about 5 to 15%, depending on the type of your inventory. And you can get this type of financing within a few weeks or less. Okay, and you can. And with equipment financing, there's a few different options that are available. Firstly, you can get money to buy equipment. So let's say you're a startup and you need money to buy an equipment. You can get it even as a startup. Let's say you own equipment, free and clear. It's a big tractor or a big machine in a factory. Well, you can use those as collateral, borrow against those as well. So you could get a lease for financing. You could purchase you could purchase or lease equipment, or again, you could borrow against equipment that you already have. With as little down as your first and last month's deposit, you can get approved even with average credit. And rates vary, like they're all over the place with equipment financing because they help people with really bad credit and people with really good. And you can be approved with average credit of 650 or higher typically. Okay, now if you already own equipment, as I talked about, free and clear, you could use that as collateral to borrow against and get financing. Now with this, you're basically selling the equipment to the lender for cash and they lease it back to you. So it's called an equipment sale-leaseback, where you can use collateral that you already own as collateral to borrow against to get financing. You'll need to have at least one large piece of higher value equipment. Sometimes people say, what if I have like 20 computers in my office? That's not going to work. They're going to want one big piece of equipment that if you default, they could sell quickly as collateral. And it could be a piece of equipment in a factory. It could be a big backhoe, things like that. Any of those type of things may work for equipment sale leaseback. And funding, again, is pretty quick within a few weeks or less. Now, there's other types of collateral that may work too. Maybe you're an investor looking to buy and flip properties and you have experience and money and even average credit where you can get financing. Now, a lot of people come in and think that they can get this financing and often can't, because you've got to have 3, 4, 5 recent properties you flipped. They're looking for people with experience that know what they're doing. They're looking for some people that have flipped properties, made money, and have part of that money in reserves, and they're going to ask you to put part of that money in an escrow account. So if you don't have experience and money in the bank, it won't work for you. But if you do, there's several different ways you can get flipper financing to get money to buy and rehab properties. And you can get financing against commercial real estate you own and get money out there as well. And book of business financing, as I mentioned, which works really, really well for insurance agents. Now, again, as a reminder, you can go to creditsuite.com/get funding with no dash, just GETFUNDING. And we actually put together for this webinar a qualifier that will tell you all of the financing you can get. So we took all the financing that's out there, including everything I'm mentioning here and a lot more options, and then we plug it into our actual system. So based on our algorithm, you can go through and determine all the financing you can qualify for. And even if you can't get approved there, don't forget we can still get you approved for business credit as well. So always check with friends and family if you have none of these, okay? It's something you definitely want to do, because a lot of them may want to invest in your business, and you can use their credit or collateral to actually do so. And again, I don't go to my family and ask them for much help ever in my life. It's just kind of been the way that I am. So if you're one of those people, I get that. I can completely relate. But the reality is, if I have a really good idea that's going to make a lot of money and I feel very confident about it, then are you really doing a disservice to your friends and family by not at least mentioning it? Do you want to get rich while they stay poor? And then you say, they say, man, where was I? Why didn't you bring me into this thing? So it's not a bad idea to just run it by the people because if they have some kind of collateral or they have good credit, they can help you get this kind of financing, and often will, just to help you because they believe in you or because they want to actually get a piece and make some money on your idea or the business. And you can also exchange equity for their contribution, or look for other people that like your idea that maybe will exchange equity. So there's crowdfunding platforms out there where you can exchange part of the equity for ideas, or just get people that believe in your idea to invest there as well. If you have none of these strengths and nobody will help you, well, then again, there's still a way that you can get money. And the best way there is business credit, because with business credit, you can get high limit credit cards regardless of collateral, cash flow, or credit. This is why I love business credit, because look, in order to get money, you need a lendable strength. You've got to have cash flow, you've got to have credit, you got to have collateral. If you have none, then you can go to family and friends. If that doesn't work, you could try crowdfunding. You could try to go to places that have venture capital if your idea is ridiculously brilliant and get money there. But business credit's a catch-all. It doesn't care if you have collateral. It doesn't care if you have cash flow. It doesn't care what your personal credit is. You can still get $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 Visa cards and MasterCards and $10,000 Dell cards and Apple cards and Amazon cards and Walmart cards, all quickly using business credit. And it also makes you more lendable as well. So business credit's really a brilliant solution for startup businesses and those that just simply can't get loans because it's linked to your EIN, not your social. So what that means is it means your personal credit just doesn't matter. The credit's available without a personal guarantee and regardless of personal credit, because when you build business credit the right way, you don't even give your social security number. You're making them approve you based on your application not even having your social security number on it. And that also means you're not personally liable for the credit you obtain. So you truly separate your liability, and your personal credit doesn't even matter. And you can also start to get it immediately. Like literally, you can get it right away. If you go through what we talked about here, making sure your business is set up credibly, you take one additional step of getting set up with the 3 reporting agencies, making sure they have a record with you. And once you do this, then you move right on to the next step, which is to start getting vendor credit. And you could do that within days or a week of actually getting started and continue to get store credit shortly thereafter. So you'll start by getting initial vendor credit. These are services that, companies that offer computers and offer office supplies and shipping supplies, things you're going to need to get your business up and going anyways. Okay. And the brilliant part of that is that they give you pretty good limits too. So often you'll get limits of $250, $2,500 right away. I mean, within the first, few weeks of applying for initial vendor credit, you'll often start to get fairly high limit accounts. Okay, these vendors report to the business credit reporting agencies, usually within 60 days, sometimes less. And so that helps you build a business credit profile and score. So to give you kind of an overview of how this works, you have a credit profile that's linked to your social. Your business has a credit profile that's linked to your business EIN. Okay, so what happens and what we're doing here is we're basically building a credit profile and score under your EIN that's not linked to your actual social. And if you follow us on Periscope, you see that we actually map all this out right on a whiteboard. And if you don't, you should. So go to our main website, CreditSuite.com, top right, you'll find links to all our social media channels. I think tomorrow we're even doing another scope where we're diving in to talk more about these type of things. So then what happens is you come in, you start to get accounts, you pay those as agreed, and then you get a credit profile and score. Okay, and now you're able to start walking in and getting $2,500 to $10,000 revolving accounts. Dell, Amazon, Walmart, BP, Chevron, Best Buy, and more, you start getting within 60 days or less, regardless of cash flow credit or collateral. Look, this is important, and I'll tell you why. Because if you don't have cash flow credit and collateral, you can call every single lender that exists. You can look everywhere online. There are not options. Trust me, any options that are out there, we're adding to our actual arsenal. Okay, but if you don't, you can still come in and get a $10,000 Dell card within 2 months, and $10,000 at Amazon, and $10,000 at Walmart. And let's be honest, that's where you're buying a lot of the stuff you're going to need anyways to fuel the business. And shortly thereafter, you can get Visa and MasterCards to buy the rest of the kind of stuff that you're actually going to need. So as you continue to apply, you'll continue to get even more credit and more stores with even higher limits. And this credit can be used to buy the things you need to actually fund the business. Okay, and then after you have a total of 10 accounts, then you'll start to actually get fleet credit. Then you'll actually start to get cash credit accounts that you can use anywhere, like Visa, MasterCards. So business credit's the best way and really one of the only ways you can get money if you don't have collateral, cash flow, and good credit. Okay, but other benefits that come with business credit to think about as well is that anybody can actually see your business credit reports. This is why you often may get denied for financing, because you can't think you're going to keep getting, or you're going to go out and get good terms on business loans if you haven't done anything about your business credit. We did this on our last live Periscope. So we did a scope, and live I said, listen, give me your business name and your city and I'll pull your business credit report right here live on Periscope. And they actually provided it. We pulled it, and she was recommended for $24,000 in credit. She opened her business March of 2015, right? So that's a year and a half ago. And she's already being recommended by Experian for almost 25 grand in credit because she built her business credit. She came onto webinars like this, Periscope, YouTube channel. She followed our advice, got her 8 trade lines, and then now she's getting approved for $20,000, $30,000 loans. Experian's recommending that she gets approved for $20,000, $30,000, and so on. I'm actually doing a presentation in Georgia this weekend, and one of the slides I have is an actual credit report from one of our clients that a year and a half in is already getting and being recommended for $65,000 loans by Experian because they built their actual business credit. But you have to keep in mind your competitors, your prospects, your clients, anybody can pull these reports just like I did this live on Periscope. As a matter of fact, I did it live on a podcast the other day. It freaked the host out. I pulled it and she said something about, something about her own business credit profile. I said, I just pulled it. Do you want to talk about it? And then I insisted we talk about it after the show, not during the show. And then we had a very long talk after. We pulled her husband's credit. We pulled her competitor's credit and compared. I even told her a quarter that her competitor was not able to pay their bills. That's pretty scary that anybody can access information, but anybody easily can. It's essential for qualifying for loans. Look, we see multi-million-dollar businesses get denied for $10,000 credit cards because they don't have business credit established. And that's the problem. If you're listening, you're going, hey, look, I'm a new business. I don't need to see my business credit report because I know I have nothing there. That's the problem. We see the most often reporting that we see of 20 to 30 scores, which are low. Okay, your score goes to 100. We often see people with 28 or 29 scores, really low scores, where they have no trade lines. Experian just knows they exist because they applied for a credit card or they got a utility from a utility company. And because they built no credit, Experian automatically gives them a 28, 29 score. And the problem with that is that then literally in these examples results in them getting denied for credit cards and loans. You can get high limit accounts quickly. Think about it. I mean, if you've got challenge credit, you're probably not used to getting $5,000 to $10,000 credit limit accounts. Can you imagine a world where within 60 days you're getting approved for $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $10,000 actual accounts? Well, that's exactly what's actually possible with business credit. It's not possible. That's common. If you follow the basic steps to do it, it's a great option for you to get money because you can start getting high limit accounts and then start doing what you need to do with the business. So you have the cash flow. You work on improving the credit. So all these other options open up while you're accessing this kind of money. There's no personal credit check, as we talked about. There's no personal guarantee. So regardless of your personal credit, you can get approved. And it really is one of the fastest ways to get money beyond, having cash flow and qualifying for one of those immediate kind of loans. So I sometimes talk to people that say, look, I don't have 60 days to wait for money, but I don't have cash flow, credit, or collateral. Well, go to a family member, go to a friend, see if they do. They don't either. Well, what do you want? You don't have a lendable strength. This is a way you can get money. It's the fastest way you're going to get money unless you have one of those 3 C's of lending. Now, crowdfunding is another great way to get money by posting a project that you have to the crowd. To really get money, you're going to usually need to line up investors first. So we hear these stories of this company that wanted $50,000 or they wanted $5,000 and they got 50. Well, the real truth behind those stories is that those people already had investors lined up for 20, 30 grand. They wanted the project to go viral. So they put a really low amount that they wanted. They brought all these investors in that then all of a sudden racked it up really high. Then it goes viral. All this news is focused on it and they're doing it quite intentional. So don't think, and I see a lot of people put projects up on crowdfunding and just expect people to start pouring money in. Most crowdfunding projects won't be exposed to anybody other than your network that you're exposing it to unless you get it to go viral, which usually results in you getting a lot of outside investors to put money in. Okay. And again, if you do that, that's really the key to getting it to go viral. And there's a lot of different platforms depending on your individual needs. Other solutions out there, AngelPad is a great solution for web technology entrepreneurs, even for startups. BeatSpring offers $20,000 in startup funding. Another great source is First Round Capital, and they'll actually give you investments in the millions if you actually have the right concept, the right idea. Jumpstart Foundry, you can get $15,000 even as a startup without a lot of loan requirements. Launch is a place where they have competitions, and if you win, you can get $500,000 from them. And all these that I list here are available even as startups, right? I want to try to show you options that no matter what your situation is, you can get money. All of these will work for you even as a startup. So that actually wraps up today. I'm going to go ahead and answer. I had a bunch of questions in the chat, so I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I get those answered. And again, we created a special link as part of this actual show today, CreditSuite.com, and that's Credit Suite, which is SUITE. So CreditSuite.com/get funding. and there's no dash in between it. It's just get GET funding, FUNDING. And if you go to creditsuite.com/get funding, it's a really cool pre-qualify engine that'll tell you all the financing you qualify for. And when you do go through and qualify, it'll ask you, hey, look, are you ready for this to go to the finance team? And if you click yes, probably today or tomorrow, within 24 hours, you're on the phone with our financing team. And we have a whole processing team and finance officers to help you with all aspects of that. It won't cost you any money. We never charge you a fee on the front end or back end. Some financing we offer, the lender pays us. Some financing we offer, the lender doesn't pay us, but it's still all going to be available. You don't have to pay a fee to get it, which is kind of cool. There's no application fee or no fee there. It's just a resource we created because, again, our goal is for everybody to have the ability to actually get money if it's something that you actually want to obtain for your business. And being that you're here, I imagine you probably do. So I'm going to probably start from the older ones and go down and go up. So hello to everybody: Kay, Greg, Victor, Valerie, Richard, Russell, Mark. Hello to everybody. Steve, I don't want to leave anybody off. Lashana, hello. And you asked about the insurance agency, insurance industry. Steve, we talked a little bit about that. Book of Business Financing, fantastic program. So far, we've never had an insurance agency take the amount of money we're able to get them approved for. They only want a fraction of it. Usually the approvals are so high and the terms are pretty good, often 2-3 years. So if you want more information on that, then you can just go ahead and get in touch with us, which is info@creditsuite.com. Info@creditsuite.com, and just say, hey, look, I was on Ty's webinar. I wanted to talk a little bit more about this kind of financing. He said to reach out, info@creditsuite.com, and I'm CC'd on a lot of those emails as well. What is the service called? I'm not exactly sure, Martin, what service you're talking about, but if you want to type that question in now, make sure it's addressed. If I have a business phone with Cox Communication, but it's a home-based business, will that show that I'm a business? It depends on what kind of phone you got. You're not giving me enough information here to answer the question. You either have a home phone or it's a business line. And if you call Cox Communication and just ask them, which is it? Did you give me a business line or a home line? They're going to tell you. But more than likely, if they put it in your home, it's a home line. So then in that case, you want to consider a virtual option like a Ring Central option. Your website has to be exactly like your business name. Ace.com for Ace Auto. No, it doesn't. And that's a great question. So, if you have a business name that's different than your website, it doesn't need to be exact. Congruity always helps. It helps people find you, but that doesn't matter in the lending world at all. I've been approved for business credit based on that exact parameter, which is something we talked about earlier, which is awesome, Greg. The one thing to keep in mind for anybody that thinks they've been approved for business credit, did you supply your social? Does it report to your personal credit reports? A Capital One Spark card, you're going to apply for in your business name, but it reports on your personal credit report. So in my world, real business credits you can obtain where you don't have to supply your social and it doesn't report on your personal credit report. So those are good questions to ask. And Daryl, does the credit report need to show how long credit history and credit cards are? I'm not exactly sure if you're talking about personal or business, but both personal and business are going to show those. And when it comes to business credit, they're mostly looking at trade lines and score. So if you have a good business credit score, which you can easily accomplish by getting some accounts that report to the business reporting agencies and paying them as agreed, that's pretty much how the business scores work, are based on that one parameter. Then if you do that and continue to get more accounts, they're going to look at how many trade lines you have to see that you have some kind of depth, or how many accounts you have reporting. They're going to look at the score, and they're going to usually use those two parameters to often approve you. How can you find out your PAYDEX score for free? I don't know, Russell. I can tell you this much. We can help you get a copy of your business credit report and score for free. But it's your Experian. We can get you your Experian scores at no cost. And we also use a company called CreditSafe, which actually congregates data from a lot of different places. We can get you multiple scores and get you a copy of your credit safe report for free. As far as I know, we're the only source out there with free business credit reports and scores. I don't know of anybody out there that gives a free DUNS or a free DMB score profile. That I'm not sure of, but I know we can help you get your Experian. I know, and go through that with you. And I know we can get you a copy of your credit safe report. And if you are interested in that, you can go to creditsuite.com/free-business-credit consultation. And right there, we can actually go through and get you that. As a matter of fact, I think that's the best link. CreditSuite.com /free business credit consultation. As a matter of fact, let me go ahead. For anybody that's here, I'll go ahead and type this into the chat so you have this. CreditSuite.com free business credit consultation. And then you can go right here, and from this link, you can actually come in and we'll get you your free business credit report and score. But I'm not sure where you could get that with D&B. That's something you'd have to ask. The DUNS number is free. Yes, it is. You can get your DUNS number from free. When you actually get when you go through to get your DUNS number with Dun & Bradstreet, they're going to ask you a question. They'll say, do you want to get it fast and pay as part of our credit builder, or do you want to wait as long as 30 days to get it? And you can choose the free option. They'll still try to call and sell you the credit builder, but you are given the option as you check out for your DUNS number to actually get your DUNS for free. You need to upgrade to find your PAYDEX. Your PAYDEX, you don't have to pay anything for. Well, you do have to pay credit monitoring service to actually see what your PAYDEX is, but you don't have to pay D&B credibility to actually get your PAYDEX score. Sometimes people are led to believe that they have to pay for D&B service to ever have a PAYDEX score. That's not accurate. If you follow the steps I talked about here and get vendor accounts that report to the business credit reporting agencies, once those start to report, you'll be given a PAYDEX score. You just need to pay for credit monitoring to know what that score is. Can a car be collateral? We talked about that. No, it can't. Vehicles aren't allowed in the business lending space. How do I sign up to be a partner? You can go to our main website, CreditSuite.com, and at the top there's a section that says pricing. That's where you actually become a white label affiliate with us. That's where you can offer business credit and financing and our technology and our servicing white label, which means you're selling it under your company name, and we just do all the servicing. You can also go to CreditSuite.com /affiliate. And that's free. You can become an affiliate with us for free, recommend anybody to us for business credit and financing, and get paid a nice size commission on both without doing anything than just referring a customer. We have marketing materials and referral forms and everything you'll need at creditsuite.com /affiliate. Or again, you can go to our main website, creditsuite.com, and look at the top for pricing. That's actually to get business credit with us, to become a partner, and basically your entire business in a box to offer at white label. So there's a couple different options, a free option and a paid option available for you there. What if I already have a loan? Can you get a second loan if the first loan is not paid off? And the answer is yes, you can. There's a lot of loans out there designed as refinance loans where you can refinance first. Is that credit driven? The inventory loan? No, the inventory loan doesn't care at all about personal credit. You can get, it's one of the only ways you can get a credit line regardless of personal credit. So it's an option, awesome option, because you can get money regardless of personal credit, and it's a real credit line. How do I see my paused? I have a guarantor. I'm not exactly sure what your question is, Chantra. So my PAYDEX, okay, you clarified it. Again, you've got to go to D&B and get the credit monitoring. It's as cheap as, $40-50 a month to actually see your PAYDEX. But again, as I mentioned, you can go to creditsuite.com /free business credit consultation. And by the dash, I'm not saying the word dash, it's the little dash on your computer in between the words. And if you go there, we can go through your Experian report and score with you at no cost, get you your credit safe report at no cost, but you'll have to pay D&B to actually get your report there. Okay, so what about buying a trade line for my EIN to establish a credit rating for my new business? You could do that, Dan, but the question is why would you want to? Vendor credit's so easy to obtain that you don't need to pay for trade lines. And if the business credit reporting agencies know you've paid for trade lines, they'll often red flag, shut down your profile. We see a lot of negative things happen from people that buy trade lines. So as easy as it is to get vendor accounts, it's probably a cheaper and faster way for you anyways, and you don't have any risk of upsetting the business reporting agencies, along with a few trade lines. Okay, so Shatara, excuse me if I mispronounced your name, but congratulations on having the DUNS and having a few trade lines. Make sure you're pulling your business reports to see those trade lines. You're closing in though. Okay, good job. Okay, let me see. Do you need to add the guarantor to the business? Joshua, it depends. But yeah, in a lot of cases, you're going to have access to more money if you do actually add the guarantor to the business. So it's definitely not a bad idea. Where in Georgia? I'm not exactly sure what your question is there. Someone with good credit, can you have them use the credit but still have no personal guarantee? No, Joshua, business credit will get you there. If you build business credit, you can get money without a personal guarantee. But if you want no personal guarantee, then you're going to have collateral or good business credit. It's the only way that's ever going to happen on any kind of financing or credit that's out there. So the person that supplies their credit as a guarantor is going to personally guarantee in case you default, but the credit won't be reported on their credit report if you go with that unsecured option we talked about. I have a business in the I have a business U.S. bank, Amex business charge card and Amex business credit card. Do they report to my business credit report? Martin, you got to find out. I'm not positive on every kind of account and where they report. Amex is kind of hit or miss. Sometimes they report on personal, sometimes they report on business, sometimes they only report to one reporting agency. But again, we'll gladly pull a credit safe report to see if it's out there on your business reports and go through your Experian with you at no cost. That I can tell you, but it's impossible for me to tell you each individual card you have and where they report without actually looking to figure that out. How can I view my payday score? We already went through that. Good afternoon. What's up, Greg? Have a multitude of businesses and multiple EIN. Is there a limit to how many DUNS number I can apply for and open up? No, there's not. If you have separate EINs, you can continue to get a DUNS number for each EIN. You guys, you got to keep in mind the business credit reporting agencies, like the consumer, exist for one reason, and their reason for existence is to sell data. So if they want your data, they'll gladly take your data. And if you set up a business and you're willing to tell them all about your business, because anybody that's ever gotten a DUNS number knows, like, they ask a lot of information, then they're gladly going to take it. So if you're thinking about opening up 30 businesses, they want your information on all 30 because, you know, by them knowing that your business exists and getting all that data, they have more information to sell, which is their primary purpose in existence. So just keep that in mind. They're not going to restrict the amount of businesses you can have because they want as much data as they can get. It just makes them more valuable by having it. Also, ideal in the purchases of securities and investments. Is this a good idea when applying for financing? That's definitely going to be high risk when they see that you're in financial services and you're clearly in financial services. You can still get business credit, but just know that some types of business loans, Greg, you're going to have a problem with because they're going to definitely deem that as high risk because of financial services. Can I use PayPal for a merchant cash advance loan or only with a bank account statement? They're going to look at bank statements if you're doing a merchant advance, but PayPal has a great merchant program. They have a great merchant loan program that you can go through right through PayPal. If you deal a lot with American Express credit cards, they'll give you a direct merchant cash loan. So my first advice to you would be to go through PayPal. My second advice would be to continuously pump that money from PayPal into your bank account, and then that opens up more options for you there as well. I have a DMB, but not an Experian business account. How do you get on Experian? You get accounts that report to Experian. You know, that's the best answer. So, you know, a lot of vendors and stores report to DMB and Experian. Some report to Equifax. You just have to get approved for accounts that actually report to Experian instead of DMB or DMB and both. That's the actual way you can get it there. May I have your email address? I actually provided that a little bit earlier. It's info@creditsuite.com. Info@creditsuite.com is the main email address to get to me. Did you say that Capital One Spark for business report on personal credit profiles also? Yes, Mark, they do. And maybe they have accounts that don't, but I've talked to Capital One myself and they say that's just how their actual Spark card works. It does report on personal credit, not business credit. Do all vendor accounts report your business credit? No, about 95 to 97% of vendors don't report credit at all, personal or business, unless you default. Only a very small percentage, about 3 to 5% of vendors that exist in the United States actually do report to the business credit reporting agencies. As a matter of fact, that's the hardest part of building business credit, is to get initial credit because so few vendors actually report to the business credit reporting agencies. I need a business loan. How secure is CreditSuite for sure way to get a business loan? I just kind of went through everything with you and mapped it out. You know, that what it comes down to is we can help you no matter what your situation is, but it breaks down like this. What we do as a company is we take all business loans on platforms that exist and we look at all their information to approve you into one place, right? So it creates one place you can go to get a business loan. Nobody can ever guarantee you any kind of loan, personal or business. If so, they're lying and I would avoid them. with everything in your power. But what I can tell you is this, as we went through this webinar, do you have cash flow of 10,000 a month or more and been in business a year? Do you have good credit or a good credit guarantor? Do you have some type of business collateral like we talked about here? If you have one of those, then you're typically going to be able to get a business loan. If you don't, then we can help you with business credit where you can get financing, build a credit profile, and be more lendable. So one way or the other, we have options for you, but what you'll qualify for when it comes to lending really comes down to cash flow credit or collateral. I have 8 trade lines reported on DB and 8 on Experian. Does that mean I have eight trade lines reporting? Well, if we're getting this technical, we refer to those as payment experiences. And yes, that does mean that. So and I call them trade lines because I think it's easier for people to relate to what trade lines are without me explaining it. But a payment experience is the reporting of an account to an individual reporting agency. So if you have one account that reports to 2 reporting agencies, that would count as 2 payment experiences. So what you're describing here is you have 8 with Experian and 8 with DNB. That would be 16 payment experiences, which is what we're referring to when it comes to business credit financing. Do inquiries show on business credit report when you apply for loans and credit? No, you're not actually going to see specific inquiries like you are used to seeing on the consumer credit report, nor does that really calculate into your score at all. Also, final question, I could list business consultation. Would that be considered high risk? No, that's actually a really good way to go, is anything to do with consultation. That's very general. Whereas, Greg, if you go with what you talked about before with securities, you're in deep doo-doo. That's going to be a problem. That's straight up high risk because that's clearly financial services. Tia, no problem. Thanks for coming. I appreciate you coming. I also invest in real estate. A couple things, Greg, you should consider. You should really consider that unsecured business financing program. The most common industry that we help with that are people that are investing in real estate. Business credit's a great way to go too. We have a lot of house flippers that use Home Depot and Lowe's business credit cards to do the rehab work that they need. And if you have experience, that house flipper program's phenomenal. You can get 100% of the value of the after repair value advanced to you, or as much as 65% loan to value, whatever actually is the higher you can get. They just need experience. They need to make sure you've got experience. They need to make sure you have a portfolio. They need to make sure you have money in the bank. It's a great program to consider if you have that, something to keep in mind as well. How can I get accounts that report to DNB and Experian? It's just a matter of where you are now in the process. If you don't have accounts now, you want to start with Uline, Quill, Monopolize Your Marketplace, Lachlan and Associates. Those are some vendors that will give you credit when you have none. And then once those, you need about 5 of those accounts reporting. Once you have those, you can start to move on to store credit. And listen, I can't break all that down in this webinar because we covered a lot. But just so you know, we have a lot of different ways you can get info. We have a podcast you can listen to on the go that maps this stuff out. We do this stuff right in front of you on Periscope Live. With YouTube, we've got hundreds of videos that map out every single aspect of building business credit. So just go to our website, creditsuite.com. Top right, you'll find a lot of our social media links, Instagram, all those type of things. And we're sharing those kind of tips along the way that'll help you as you go through. And don't forget, we've got a paid coaching program too. If you want to work with our finance officers, our processors, our team, our technology, you can definitely do so too. We'd love to have you as a client, but don't forget, we've got a lot of free info out there that can help you without having to pay for it, just so you know that too. Greg, no problem, man. Thanks for coming. I appreciate you being here. And thank you, Sean. I appreciate the feedback. Thank you very much. Does the credit limits matter? Let me see the first question. What do you think about secured business credit cards to start? Do the credit limits matter? They're pretty tough to find. Usually you start building consumer credit with secured credit cards. You won't find a lot of those in the business reporting agency. And of the ones that are out there, well, I'm just going to tell you, you're probably not going to find very many of them at all. You're better to start with vendor accounts than secured accounts. Limits only matter in the sense that the limits you start to get, the other credit you get after that will initially mimic those limits. So if you get a $500 limit account, that's what you're going to start to get approved for when it comes to revolving accounts. But it's easier to start with vendor accounts and secured accounts. That's really how most business credit is built there. Nowadays. Is accounting and tax preparation considered high risk? It is, because you're dealing with financial. So anything in financial is often looked at as high risk. It's not to say you can't get loans, right? Like, we've got accountants loans. We've got people in credit repair loans. We do a lot of business with our lenders. So because we do so much business, we can often get those kinds of exceptions. But remember, just as I talked about in the beginning, you've got some industries that are just absolutely a no if they know you're in it. You've got others like what you're talking about, accounting, that's not a no, it's just immediately high risk. The underwriting is more stringent. So instead of going to the bank direct, you might want to work with a broker, or even work with our team where we can use our power and our relationships to kind of get you approved. We definitely do that, but just keep in mind that the underwriting guidelines are more stringent. So if you go directly to the lender, it's going to be a little tougher because, again, you're in a high risk industry, but if you've got other compensating factors, that can help you there too. Where's your presentation, George, this weekend? It's actually in Atlanta. So you can go to info@creditsuite.com, email us, and we'll respond to let you know where I'll be. I just got back from Arizona doing a presentation out there last weekend, and then I will be in Atlanta this weekend, and then I'll be in Tampa, Florida 2 weeks after that, the last week of the month, down at the at an event down here in Tampa. So those are the places I'll be in October. I usually go a lot of different places, especially this time of year. And for secured credit cards, Wells Fargo, perfect. So Delisa, I appreciate that. So Wells Fargo, Delisa says, has a secured credit card. So what I would make sure there is make sure that it reports to the business credit reporting agencies, not the consumer. You do not want to get any kind of credit card like that doesn't report to the consumer reporting agencies. What's the easiest business cash credit card to get approved for when all criteria are met? That's a tough one. I mean, there's a lot of different ones out there depending on the specifics. Home Depot has a commercial card. Key Bank is kind of on and off with theirs. Sometimes they have them with the PG, sometimes they don't. Sam's Club has a good one. So those are a few of them there. There's a lot of cash credit cards. There's so many of them out there, but it depends. Some will want a personal guarantee, some won't. Some are going to want to look at your personal credit, but still base the decision based on your business credit. Some won't. So there's just so many variables there, but there's a few that will hopefully help you. But you can report it yourself on the cash to business report on D&B. You can, but you can't. D&B won't allow you to report credit cards or bank credit to them on their with their credit builder. So if you actually go to D&B and look at credit builder, on the very bottom of their page, there's a glossary where they'll actually outline for you exactly what you can and can't do. And they'll tell you right there what you can't do. And one of the things you can't do is they won't let you report bank credit on there as an actual account, and they won't let you do credit cards on there as an actual account. So the credit builder is okay, but just make sure you look at the fine print. On the very bottom of the credit builder page, you'll see something that says like glossary, and if you click on that, it will show you all the restricted things that they will not report, and you'll see that those accounts are on there. And even if you were able to, it still wouldn't help your experience at Equifax, and that's what most lenders and credit issuers look at anyways. So you really need to focus on building all three: D&B, Experian, and Equifax as well. And we just talked about inquiries. No real effect on your business credit. And consumer credit, it affects 10% of your score. Business credit, that's absolutely not the case. Can people in other countries go through the business credit program? Absolutely, they can, as long as they have an actual EIN here in the actual United States. They definitely can. I would check with your bank and see if they have one secured credit card. Again, we can actually, talk about a lot of those options, but the bottom line is what I find is that they have no freaking clue. I often walk into banks and ask them if their credit reports to the business credit reporting agencies, and your front end bankers don't know. I often talk to people like Capital One and other credit card companies that send me offers, and they rarely know. And I think that that's very interesting. I get a ton of offers in the mail for business credit cards, and I call them all and say, do you report to the business credit reporting agencies or consumer? Most are front end people. They just don't know. So again, you're fighting an uphill battle trying to get secured credit. You're fighting the way that the system naturally works. Secured credit's just not how business credit's initially established. It's established through vendor credit accounts. So you really should work the system the way the system's designed to be worked, using vendor accounts. If you want to go with secured cards, you can, but you're going to find they're few, far, and in between, where you're going to find where you guaranteed have confirmation that they report to the business credit reporting agencies. And again, you can't use those as part of D&B's credit builder to add them to your report either, because they're bank credit and credit cards, which are restricted with D&B as well. So hopefully that helps you. Delisa, thanks for coming. I appreciate you being here. Can I have two businesses on one address? Your DUNS number is linked to your address, so it's never a good idea to do that. You want to try to make sure you have a business address linked to a separate a business linked to a separate address, because if you don't do that, it causes problems with your DUNS number. You can actually have an overlap of your business information possibly. The same as people do in the consumer credit world, right? Your consumer credit's linked to your name, your location, your social. So if you have somebody that's your family member that's a junior and they're in the same location and the same name, information can often get mismatched on the credit reports. It's not that uncommon. And in the business world, that's a risk you face because information is linked to your address, which is why your address is so crucial in the business world. So not the best idea. Does Chase Inc. business credit cards offer accounts with no PG? Man, I'm not sure, Mark, off the top of my head if they do. Do they offer business credit accounts? Yes, they absolutely do. But they're kind of hit or miss. I mean, I've seen a lot of approvals with the PG where they'll report to the business credit reporting agencies. And I've seen, I think, in the past offer no PG accounts too. But so many of these guys are in and out. You know, Discover in and out, Key Bank in and out, Chase in and out with sometimes they want a PG, sometimes they don't. I can tell you definitively that they definitely give business credit accounts with a PG that report to the business credit reporting agencies, not the consumer. I can tell you that definitively, but whether or not at this point in time they have some accounts with a PG or not, I'm not really sure. That stuff just changes so often that I've learned not to even say 100% for sure because I'm not sure. It changes so often. Do they report business loans on CD accounts? No, they typically don't. I've not seen any of those reported. What they will, so no, they typically won't. Most companies won't report those type of accounts. What they'll often do, some do. We actually used to offer that in our finance suite. We actually used to have a whole program of CD loans you could get for your business. But again, just like I was talking to Mark about credit cards, they kept fluctuating with when they did report and when they didn't report. So we eventually had to remove it because it was just too unpredictable. So again, you got to ask your bank if they do or don't. But in a lot of cases, you'll see they don't. Although I know there are some CD programs that are out there. We used to track that, but they just changed so often that we just stopped even making that part of our suite because we would recommend that one does and then they would change and wouldn't, and it was just kind of a nightmare to deal with. How does what you just explained about multiple businesses at one address pertain to those of us who use virtual addresses? Don't they have one address to use for multiple companies? It's a good idea. It's a good point to make to research that address and see if it's being used somewhere else. And that's what I do. So if I was ever going to use a UPS address or a virtual address, the very first thing I do is Google the address to see if the address is associated with somebody else. But you're the only one using that actual number with a virtual address. So what I'm saying is there's a possibility that in the past somebody else has used that address, and there's a possibility somebody's even got business credit established that address. A Google search, a 411 search, a search with DMV, those type of things will help you know if that's the case or not. But when virtual addresses, you're the only one using that address. They're not renting out that address to multiple companies. They're only doing it to one at a time. So all you really have to worry about, Tia, is just did they do that in the past? And I'm going to answer maybe 2 more questions and then get this wrapped up because I have another webinar coming up here very shortly. So I want to go ahead and make sure I get 2 more. If you have, actually, I'll do 3 more. So if you have any other questions, go ahead and get them typed in. I'll get them answered. What's the best way to utilize a paid off house, which is under business name, to get a loan? Anything but a refinance. That's a tough thing. There are some limited lenders out there that I found that will do that, but I'm not sure off the top of my head who they are. I don't know if Pearl or Yellowstone was one. I can't remember. I've seen that only one scenario where somebody would actually use a house as collateral for a business loan. And I can't remember off the top of my head who that one source was. My finance team would know. I won't. But I'm not remember because I see one deal come through and I'm like, wow, I didn't even know that was possible. I'd Google that to find the source. Very rare what you're describing, but I actually have before seen one source that did it, but I never have seen them close a loan. I think we'd sent deals to them and never saw it done. So it's not by somebody I'd remember or recommend, but it is slightly possible, but I think they're going to want other qualifying factors there as well. So it's something to look into. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I really appreciate everybody's feedback. I wanted to make sure I don't often get a chance to stay for a Q&A because I'm usually off to another webinar, which I am now, but I actually had a little gap here in between my two. So I'm glad I got a chance to hang out with everybody and answer your questions. And I really appreciate you hanging out with me. It was really cool hanging out with you. So a couple links that we talked about here to remember: CreditSuite.com. At the top right, we have all kinds of social media channels with all kinds of info on getting loans and credit that can help you. Make sure you follow us on Periscope and YouTube and those types type of things. We've always got really cool things going on. CreditSuite.com/get funding. You can go through and get plugged right into all of our financing options to see everything you can qualify for now when it comes to loans. And CreditSuite.com/free-business-credit-consultation. And when I say that dash, I mean that little dash on your computer in between. There you can get a free business credit report and score through CreditSafe. We'll get that for you. We'll also get your Experian report, go through all those details with you. We'll also talk to you about any other questions one-on-one you have about business credit building, and do a quick loan qualifier for you too, to see what kind of financing you can get. And that doesn't cost any money. And the get funding link to find out what you qualify for doesn't cost any money. If you go in to get business loans with us, we're not going to charge you any money. You'll still pay the lender whatever you normally pay. So some good options for you there as well. Some other things people asked about actually working with us. If you are interested in being a partner, you can go to CreditSuite.com, grab a free guide. You'll start getting our emails. CreditSuite.com/affiliate. You can refer customers to us and get paid good commissions, track your commissions, get all that kind of stuff at no cost, as well as our partner program, where you actually get our entire business credit builder finance team, and you also get everything you need to sell business credit financing as a service through our white label service. So there's a bunch of different options and resources for you that again are just a reminder of everything what everybody's asked. So I really appreciate the feedback and thank you all very much for attending, and thank you for the thank yous, and hopefully I've answered all of your questions. If you have anything else, reach out to us. The information is right here, info@creditsuite.com, 877-600-2487. Thanks everybody very much for taking the time to join me today. It means a lot. Hopefully you got some good content out of this and I was able to answer all your questions. Thanks everybody. Have a great day.